Willie D Live.
You ever heard of Solomon's Revenge? See that guy right there? So, don't know if this is true or whether this has, some type of folklore association. But there's a story floating around about this guy who they call Solomon. My bad, Solomon. Why am I saying Sullivan? Solomon. This is a guy who many black people have called an American hero. Where's my story on this dude? I have Solomon Fairfax is his name. And it's the story of a former slave from Charleston who buried 9 masters alive. 9 masters alive. So there is no historical data on him. There's nothing available. The reason that people say that data is not available is because it's been hidden from the world, because they never wanted black people to know that they had the power to defend themselves and to take the life of people who had enslaved them. So they hid the fact that this guy did what he did. If you do a deep dive on the internet, even AI and other internet sources are lean towards the story being a ghost story, being made up, being urban legend. But keep in mind who write the scripts for AI and much of these search engines, what's coming back, who's writing this stuff, right? You got to keep that in mind. I tend to lean on the fact that it happened because I know not everybody cowered. Everybody didn't just take it. There was a whole lot of people who fought back. And those people's stories have been buried. Those people's stories were buried because they couldn't have black people out there thinking that they could actually fight back. They didn't have, and more than fighting back, they could not have black people knowing that they had the power to take life. I hear a lot of black people talking about, man, I'll die for man, I'm gonna die. But I hardly ever hear them talk about saying that they'll kill for theirs, I hear them all the time talking about dying. So a guy like this would not be the type of guy you would see in the history books. Hell, they're taking Malcolm who never killed anybody, and Martin, who's never killed anybody, Frederick Douglass, who never killed anybody, out of the history books. So they wasn't trying to let some dude like this make it. This narrative has been primarily spread on YouTube and YouTube channels and social media pages that are dedicated to history stories. But you let AI tell it is history, dark histories, and folklore. The location, the story is typically set in St. Michael's Cemetery in Charleston, South Carolina. The legend claims that during 1923 renovation, groundkeepers found deep scratch marks inside 9 coffins belonging to wealthy plantation owners who died mysteriously between the years of 1851 and 1855. Solomon's journal, a key element in the alleged discovery of a journal beneath a magnolia tree, written by a man named Solomon Fairfax, which detailed his revenge. So the historical context. While this story is making its ways. It draws on very real and brutal history of slavery in Charleston, a major hub of slave trade. So even if the story was fictional, it draws on the brutal history of slavery in Charleston and in the Deep South, period. I do have you know that there were real slave rebellions and planned insurrections occurred, such as the major plot organized by free black carpenter Denmark Vesey in 1822, which you probably never heard of. But yeah, it went down. It went down, and they handled their business. There is a documented story of Solomon Northup, a free black man who was kidnapped and sold into slavery for 12 years. And that has verified historical accounts detailed in his memoir, 12 Years a Slave. So they don't mind you knowing about stories like 12 Years of Slave because he didn't whoop no ass. He didn't kill nothing. You know, he didn't stop nothing. He just was like just another slave, docile slave. He was a free man who got broken into a slave. He was a free man, and he was kidnapped and enslaved. He didn't do any, you know, he didn't start a revolt or anything like that. He didn't, you know, so that's why they made a movie about him, and the movie was highly successful. They'll let you make these movies about slaves as long as they come out on top. As long as they don't give you no ideas about having the power to take life. That's why the greatest slave movie ever made, Birth of a Nation, directed by Nate Parker, didn't do so well at the box office. They boycotted it. And they actually used Black Twitter to help them do that. Because what they did is they went after Nate on an old essay case where a woman I think it was in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if it was Pittsburgh. But a woman, when he was in college, a girl who he went to school with claimed that he had essayed her. Well, the girl had a train ran on her. And I'm not sure if he was in the room or whatever, but he did, I believe, had sex with the chick or whatever, but there was no rape involved. They even went to trial and he was acquitted. Him and his buddy was acquitted. Black men acquitted in Pennsylvania of essaying a white girl. So you tend to believe that if they actually went to trial and was acquitted in Pennsylvania, out of all people, black men doing this, accused of doing this to a white girl, they were likely innocent, right? So I absolutely believe that an innocent man or innocent men got a raw deal. They got dealt a horrible hand. Nate created one of the greatest movies ever made. The cinematography, sonically, the acting. Oh man, that movie was on point. If you haven't seen that movie, you are doing yourself an injustice. In fact, first of all, ain't no new movie coming out that's better than that movie. That's number one. So if you're planning on watching a new movie, going to the theaters, you ain't even got to go to the theater. You can watch that one. You need to watch that first. Because ain't no new movie coming out that's better than it. I can tell you that. No movie coming out in the next few months, at least I ain't seen nothing coming out soon that can compare to it. And if you're planning on watching any other movies that's already out, there's very few movies that can even hold a candle to it. So if you already watched something else and you're thinking about watching a movie you've already watched again, you should go ahead and invest your time in watching Birth of a Nation and just see how that movie just watch how it progresses. One of the best films ever made. And not only did they boycott it, but once it came out, they tried to bury it. Because they do not want Black people to know that they have the power to take life of those who try to take their life, of those who have intentions of taking their life. They don't want you to have that thought. But this guy allegedly handled his business. Everybody ain't scared. Everybody ain't running.